Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. If you thought we were done swimming in the ocean of Watchtower articles, you are wrong. No, we have become Job and we're about to get swallowed and go into the belly of the fish that is Watchtower. And we are going to look at the very newest one they just released for the April 2022 study edition, because there was a couple questions from readers articles in there. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to look at one of those and use it as a platform to, once again, as we like to do, expose a larger problem within the Jehovah's Witness organization itself. Anyway, with all of that being said, thank you so much for dropping a like, because I know you've already done it, and thank you also for subscribing, because I know you already did it, because you're my friend and you're cool. With all that being said, let's get straight away into it. Alright, so as I said, this comes from a Watchtower. So the questions from readers is asking, what does the Bible say about taking oaths? So then just, the reason people are asking this question is in Matthew chapter 5 and 33, Jesus explicitly says, do not swear at all, just let your yes mean yes and your no, no. I think we're all pretty familiar with that scripture. So this always cracks me up, because when you do have an example of something that is explicitly said in the Bible, just like perfectly spelled out, it's amazing. They just find these ways to like hop, skip, and jump all about around it. And anyway, it always makes me laugh, because it would be impractical for them not to take any oaths of any kind. So they're like, well, Jesus really didn't mean don't swear at all. He just really meant something or another. We can't really keep track. Anyway, moving down a little bit farther, it does say that some oaths are compatible with God's will, and then it gives the examples of when exchanging vows when people are married. So that's something that they do. But hey, yeah, that's okay. You know, we know that that's an arrangement that God set up. So of course, you know, making oaths or swearing vows or making these promises, it's all cool. And then you go a little bit farther under this one that says some oaths are a matter of conscience. And it says, at times we may need to evaluate an oath carefully in the light of Jesus' counsel to pay back Caesar's things to Caesar, but God's things to God. Suppose, for example, that a Christian applies for citizenship for a passport, and he learns that he is required to take an oath of allegiance. If in that country such an oath means swearing to act in a way clearly contrary to God's law, his Bible-trained conscience would not allow him to take it. The government, however, may allow him to modify the wording. So in this instance, they're basically saying, well, if they're not requiring you to do anything that we say, because when it comes to God's law, as we've already seen in this article itself, the Bible can say one thing and they'll say, it doesn't really mean that. The Bible cannot say something and they'll say, no, it absolutely, definitely means that. So you may as well just throw that thing out of the point because we say so. All right, scrolling down to the second to the last paragraph, it says this. It is important to remember that if you take such an oath, you are swearing before God that you will tell the truth. You need to be prepared to answer truthfully any question that may be asked of you. So this is, like I said, the newest Watchtower study edition that has been released. So no doubt at some level, the governing body is fully aware of this. Now, I've pointed to other examples of what I think are some of the biggest lies that the governing body tells, and I've alluded to this one, but I've never really gone into it, you know, really head first and explored that. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now let's compare that with a written statement that was given by Mr. Gerrit Losch. Now, I don't know if you can actually just go online and find this anymore, but I know when I first discovered this, it wasn't through any apostate mediums. It was typing in a news search, Jehovah's Witnesses, to see what was going on, hearing about this thing in California going on with this child safeguarding issues, and me kind of jumping in and be like, well, what's all this about? And a bunch of apostate stuff came up. So I'm like, well, I can't read that. So I went to the actual court, and for, I think, $40, I was able to download all the documents of the case. And I came across this very statement, and I've tried to show it to some of my family members, and they just didn't want to see it. They're like, no, we don't care. I'm like, but you really need to read this. It's crazy. Anyway, with all of that being said, this was basically saying that Gerrit Losch needed to come in for a deposition because he would be an expert, essentially, as a member of the governing body and as the longest tenured member of the governing body. He would be the one to bring in to get some clarity on any doctrinal or organizational procedures. Where better to go than the very tippity top of the organization, it would seem. So, right here it says, Gerrit Losch declares as follows: I am 18 years old, sound mind, and competent to make this declaration. I have personal knowledge of the matters contained herein, and they are all true and correct. So that is point number one. We'll just cruise on down a little bit, because he's basically like, I don't even know what's going on with this case. I don't really have any familiarity with it. I wasn't served any of these notices. So, and then in number 6, he says, I am a member of the ecclesiastical governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, having been appointed to serve in that capacity on July 1st, 1994. I was not on the governing body in 1986 when the plaintiff alleges he was abused by this guy. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is the highest ecclesiastical authority for the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it exercises spiritual oversight for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. That is a factual and true statement. This next one is not. Number 8, I am not, and never have been, a corporate officer, director, managing agent, member, or employee of Watchtower. I do not direct, and have never directed, the day-to-day operations of Watchtower. I do not answer to Watchtower. I do not have, and never have had, any authority as an individual to make or determine corporate policy for Watchtower or any department of Watchtower. Okay, so let us take this piece by piece. So first of all, he says, I am not and never have been a director, member, or employee of Watchtower. Now, what he's basically trying to say is that it's the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, or what is the specific one that he's saying? Yes, so in number 5, it says, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York Incorporated. So when they're talking about Watchtower, what he's referring to is Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, Inc. Now, Watchtower has hundreds, if not thousands, well, they definitely have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of different corporations, and they all have different, members that are meant to see over them. Just type in to a Google search, like Watchtower Bible Tract Society charity, and you'll just start scrolling, and you will find so many. Every single country or every single state has their own separate little charity, and it gets wild if you go down the rabbit hole. I suggest you don't. It's actually not that interesting. Anywho, so going back to the main thing, I am not and have never been a corporate officer, director, managing agent, employee, or member of Watchtower. Well, let's look, if we just go on to JW.org and we type in governing body. So we have a statement here that's signed. He says he's in clear mind, saying that he's never been any of these things. Well, go to JW.org, type in governing body. This is the very first article you'll see. What is the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses? The governing body is a small group of mature Christians who provide direction for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. Their work is twofold. They oversee the preparation of Bible-based instruction through the publications, meetings, and schools of Jehovah's Witness. They supervise the worldwide work of Jehovah's Witnesses by directing our public ministry and overseeing the use of donated assets. I don't direct the day-to-day operations of Jehovah's Witnesses. I just oversee all of the publications that they will read. I oversee and supervise all the information that will be said at their congregation meetings or in the schools of Jehovah's Witnesses. I merely supervise the public ministry, which is the greatest and most important work being done under the sun, and I merely oversee the use of donated assets. So I'm in control of the money, I'm in control of the policy, and I'm in control of the general direction of the organization. Oh, but what does he say in that very last sentence to try and get out of this blinding discrepancy? He says, I do not have and never have had any authority as an individual. BS. Authority as an individual is like saying that you don't have the right to vote because you're just one person. It makes no sense. And we have documented evidence, so we, at least in the past, and it's also alluded to currently, as I've talked about in other videos, where they still use a voting system with a supermajority. So when he says, I have no authority as an individual, you kind of do. You're 1/8. You are literally 1/8 of all of the decisions that happen in the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York. This is absolutely a blatant and direct lie right into, he is spitting in the face of the California justice system. And I mean, maybe that language is a little bit too harsh, but I personally don't think so. And then there's also the, the classic, if I said this, I would immediately be disassociated. Watchtower doesn't have any authority over me. Oh wait, sorry, that's the point number 9. It says Watchtower does not have and never has had any authority over me. And then later on, he's like, well, I wasn't, a member back in when these allegations were brought up. I lived in Austria up until 1990, and I don't even know who this person is. And then he ends it by saying, I'm a resident of the state of New York, as I live and work in Brooklyn, where the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses is located. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California that the foregoing is true and correct, and that this declaration is executed on the date. Now here's the thing with this, is there is, I suppose, a technicality here where he might be able to squeak out under this, and that's by him not having any association with the corporation. But to suggest that he is not in direct control and as a member of the governing body, that he is not in direct control of those different corporations, is just getting silly with language and avoiding what is the purpose of this inquiry. And the purpose of this deposition is, let's get an expert in here. Let us have him sit on the stand so we can figure out what are the Jehovah's Witness policies, because this guy's obviously going to be in charge of New Light. So if he gets any, rapid fire speed run from Jesus on New Light, then bada bing, bada boom, he's sitting right there in front of us. It would be helpful. But I just found this to be absolutely terrible when I was reading this section on oaths. Now, the last thing I will mention here is there is seemingly this idea of there's a difference between, misleading and lying and all of this good stuff. So I just wanted to read A few passages out of a 2004 Watchtower. It's entitled, I don't know why I just went, Guard Against Deception. And in paragraph 2 of that article, it says, deception comes in many forms and has crept into nearly all aspects of modern day life. Media reports abound with examples, politicians lying about their actions, accountants and lawyers overstating corporate profits, and advertisers misleading consumers, litigants cheating insurance companies, just to name a few. Then there is religious deception. The clergy mislead the masses by teaching false doctrines such as the immortality of the soul, hellfire, and the Trinity. And then it goes and talks about all of the different deception in the world. It goes and talks about apostates directly. It says Satan has long used apostates in his efforts to seduce God's servants. Apostates may claim to worship Jehovah and to believe the Bible, but they reject the visible part of his organization. Some even return to the God-dishonoring doctrines of Babylon the Great, the world empire of false religion. And then going down to paragraph 8, it says, what methods do apostates use to achieve their aim? They often resort to distortions, half-truths, and outright falsehoods. Yes, only apostates would give a half-truth or an outright falsehood or a distortion. Because a distortion for a governing body member to say he's not a member of Watchtower, to say that he doesn't direct the day-to-day operations of Watchtower, to suggest that he is only on the spiritual end of things. He doesn't handle any of their policy. That is a half-truth, an outright falsehood, and a distortion all wrapped into one single thing. And then this whole article finishes with this statement. Maybe I'll get a little close to the mic and talk a little low. There we go. During this final part of the last days, it is to be expected that Satan will continue to launch an avalanche of lies and deceptions. Thankfully, Jehovah has not left us in the dark regarding Satan's deceptive tactics. The Bible and the Bible-based publications of the faithful and discreet slave clearly expose the devil's evil methods. Being forewarned, we are forearmed. Yes, let us then keep on guard against the reasonings of apostates. Maybe we determine to avoid the subtle snare of deception, and let us recognize and reject all of Satan's lies. By doing so, we will safeguard our relationship with the true God who detests deception. Woo! Watchtower never will be deceptive ever. Yucky, yucky, yucky is this entire thing that they go on about apostates, deception, lies. You know you can trust the faithful and discreet slave. No, I have just demonstrated. I've in I don't know how long this video been, like 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, I probably could have gotten it done in 2 minutes, but in 2 minutes, we can completely dismantle one member of the governing body for spitting in the face of Caesar. You know, pay Caesar things to Caesar. Let your yes mean yes. No, none of that counts. And what is really irking about this is, well, actually, I'm going to need to change my camera battery, and then I'll tell you what's really irking about this. All right, after a little intermission and me definitely not losing my train of thought that I had previously, and definitely not being too lazy to actually download that take and see where I actually left off, and definitely not just saying, I'll figure it out later. After all of those definitely nots, let's jump right back into what I was talking about. And that is, when you grow up as a Jehovah's Witness, you have this idea around lying, that it's this horrible thing, God will judge you, you won't get any paradise, you won't get any koalas, you won't get any watermelons, and that would be horrible, right? So, you try and make sure you're honest in all things, and it is one of the things that is just absolutely talked about in the Bible, is how it is quintessential to be a trustworthy, honest person. And it's funny because, and I started the video, so I guess it's appropriate we end it that way. When there's something that's explicit in the Bible, Jehovah's Witnesses will willy-nilly just ignore it as if it doesn't exist. So, here is what I'm talking about. for this. If you go to the shepherd the flock under God, and that's the secret little elder's handbook, but it's not so secret. Should we even say secret anymore? I mean, everyone has access to this if they just go and bada bing, you're ready to go. Anyway, when it's talking about the section 12, determining whether a judicial committee should be formed. For those of you that don't know, a judicial committee is where they will basically say, yes, we need to disfellowship this person, which means they will be kicked out of all of their friend circles, of their family. Everyone will shun them, and they'll have to go through this ridiculously long and arbitrary process for being reinstated back into the congregation. And the reinstatement literally depends on who their family is and how well liked their family is, and you can't convince me otherwise. So when it's talking about determining whether a judicial committee should be formed, they have this to say under number 22: deliberate malicious lying bearing false witness. Now just notice the language they use. Though all lying is bad, judicial action is taken only if there has been a practice of deliberate malicious lying. Malicious means deliberately harmful, harboring ill will or enmity. Lying that requires judicial action involves more than just exaggerations or petty, misleading statements of relatively minor consequence, or lying because of momentary pressure or fear of men. So in the handbook that ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses don't get to see, what do we have here? Wait, so pretty much they're cool with telling lies as long as it's not a pattern, or you say you were scared. So when Gerrit Losch was writing his statement, he just said, "Oh, I am an old man. I'm scared. I don't know where I am. You wish me to sign. I will sign right here. Yes. And I will not have to go answer for my crimes again." Like, he just says he's scared. Oh, it's a momentary pressure or a fear of man. So lying is okay in this instance. Oh, it was petty. It was okay in this instance. I just find that really, really interesting. Alright, so that ends this video. Thank you everyone for watching to the end. I very much appreciate it. A quick shout out to everyone that has joined the Patreon. If you'd like to get any more information on that, you can check out the links down below. Anyway, shout outs go to HC, Zachary, Ryan, Janet, yeah, I can say your name. I'm doing this off the top of my head. SFFC, MNK, CP, CWTEHE, G, and JD. Thank you all so very, very, very much for joining and supporting the channel. It does mean a lot, and it does help me just keep going. Anyway, with all of that good stuff being done, I don't know what I could do to be wicked. I guess we could resurrect Cat Cam. Do you guys want to resurrect Cat Cam? Okay, let's do it. Alright, well, thus ends the worst version of Cat Cam that we've ever seen in our entire lives.